The great space station floated like a shining jewel in the endless dark. It was a place where many alien races gathered to trade, share ideas, and build peace. Among them were the humans, a young species compared to most but full of energy and determination. The humans were still considered newcomers in the galaxy, yet their bold spirit always made them stand out. Captain Elias sat with his fellow officers in the main hall of the station. It was a vast place filled with bright banners, crystal walls, and hundreds of voices speaking in many languages. Today was a celebration, one meant to show unity between different species. Elias knew that every move humans made here would affect how the galaxy viewed them. He had promised himself to stay calm, polite, and ready for anything. Still, he had not expected what was about to happen. At the center of the hall sat Princess Seralia of the Aurelian Empire. Her people were tall, graceful, and known for their wisdom. The princess herself was admired for her honesty, though her blunt nature often surprised even her own advisors. When she rose to speak, her shimmering gown caught the light like flowing water. All voices lowered to hear her words. She spoke first of peace and the need for cooperation. Then, with a sudden tilt of her head, she turned her large violet eyes toward the humans. Her voice rang clear through the chamber. "I have studied much about your species," she said. "But I have one question that still puzzles me. How many times can a human mate?" The words fell into the air like a meteor striking calm water. For a long second there was silence. A few aliens shifted awkwardly. Some tried not to laugh. Human diplomats froze in shock. Elias felt heat rise to his face. Never had he thought such a question would be asked in a formal gathering. One of his officers coughed loudly, as if to cover the sound. Another stared at the floor, trying to pretend nothing had happened. Around the hall, alien delegates whispered in their own tongues. A group of reptilian traders snickered. The insectoid visitors clicked their mandibles in amusement. The question was simple, but in this setting it carried a weight that could humiliate humans if handled poorly. Elias understood that this was a moment that could not be ignored. The princess had not asked her question to mock them. She looked genuinely curious, almost innocent, as if this detail of human life was as important to her as any political matter. If he stayed silent, humans would appear weak or embarrassed. If he answered rudely, it could offend royalty. He needed to walk carefully like a man crossing thin ice. He stood slowly, bowing slightly in respect before speaking. "Your Highness," he began, his voice steady, "that is indeed a bold question. Among my people, such matters are usually private. But since you ask not out of insult but curiosity, I will answer in a way that brings honor to both of us." The hall grew quiet again. Everyone wanted to hear what he would say. Elias let the silence build just enough, then continued. "Humans are unusual. Our strength is not in size or claws, but in endurance. When it comes to survival, we can continue long after many would stop. This applies not only to work, travel, or battle, but also to the bond between partners. We are capable of great repetition and energy, far more than many species imagine, and unlike some, we do not measure only numbers, but also connection and determination." Princess Seralia tilted her head, her eyes shining with interest. Around her, the alien nobles whispered louder now, their faces showing both surprise and doubt. Elias noticed even his own crew looking at him with wide eyes. He smiled calmly, though inside his heart was racing. He had managed to turn a risky moment into a chance to show human spirit. One of the Aurelian advisors stepped forward, frowning. "Captain, are you saying that humans treat such endurance as a point of pride?" Elias nodded firmly. "It is not about pride alone. It is about our nature. Humans endure storms, hunger, pain, and fear. We push forward when others fall back. If your Highness asks how many times we can repeat an act, the answer is simple. As many times as needed and more than most would expect." Laughter rippled across the room, but this time it was not mocking. It was laughter mixed with respect and astonishment. Some shook their heads, others clapped lightly against the table. Even the reptilian traders who had mocked earlier now looked at Elias with new interest. What seemed like a strange or silly question had turned into a story about human resilience. The princess smiled, a rare expression that brightened her elegant face. "Your words are clever, Captain Elias. You have given me much to think about. Perhaps your people truly do have strengths hidden beneath their simplicity." She placed her hands together in a gesture of respect. "I will remember this answer." Elias bowed again, relief flowing through him. The danger of embarrassment had passed, and instead humanity had gained attention. The hall resumed its lively chatter, but now the tone was different. Where before there had been whispers of doubt, now there was curiosity and a hint of admiration. Elias sat down again, his officers looking at him with new pride. He knew this was only the beginning. What started as an awkward question from a curious princess might become a door to something far greater. The night on the great station passed slowly after the banquet. Stories of the princess's unusual questions spread quickly through the shining halls. Wherever humans walked, they felt the eyes of curious aliens following them. Some smiled, some whispered, and some shook their heads in disbelief. What had begun as an awkward moment was now becoming the most talked-about event of the gathering. Captain Elias tried not to pay much attention to the gossip. He knew that curiosity was natural, and if handled well, this could become an advantage for humans. Still, he wondered what the princess truly thought of his answer. She had smiled, but her eyes had carried something more than amusement. They carried hunger for knowledge. The next day, as the humans prepared to attend another council meeting, a message arrived from the Aurelian court. It was an invitation. Princess Seralia wished to meet the human delegation in her private chamber. The officers exchanged glances, unsure what it meant. Some worried it was a trick to test them further. Others whispered that perhaps the princess wished to continue her strange questions. Elias listened quietly, then gave a simple nod. "We will accept," he said. "If a princess wants to speak with us, it would be foolish to refuse. But we must be careful. Every word we say will shape how her people see us." The chamber of the princess was unlike the noisy banquet hall. It was quiet, filled with glowing plants that released soft blue light, and walls carved with symbols that told stories of her ancestors. At the center sat Princess Seralia on a chair shaped like a flower in bloom. She greeted the humans with calm dignity, though her eyes sparkled with curiosity once again. "I thank you for coming," she said. "Captain Elias, your answer last night has left me with many thoughts. I wish to learn more about your people. Not just the details of your bodies, but the way your strength is tied to your spirit. Will you speak with me honestly?" Elias bowed slightly. "We will answer as best as we can, Your Highness." The princess leaned forward, her long silver hair catching the soft light. "My people," she began, "reproduce rarely. It is not weakness, but the way nature shaped us. Each bond is precious, but it is slow and careful. Your answer suggested something different. You spoke not of numbers, but of endurance, of determination. I want to know, why are humans built this way? What gave you such energy?" The question was not asked with embarrassment or mockery. It was the question of a true student, one who wanted to understand the mystery of a species so different from her own. Elias thought carefully before answering. "On Earth, our home," he said, "life was not easy. We were not born the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the fiercest. Many creatures could outrun us, many could kill us with claws or teeth. To survive, we relied on something else. We learned to keep going even when tired, to walk for days, to hunt until the prey collapsed, to endure heat, cold, and hunger. That is how we lived long enough to build our homes, our tools, and our future." The princess listened closely, her expression unreadable. One of her advisors, standing behind her, frowned slightly as if doubting his words. But Seralia's voice carried only interest when she spoke again. "So it is not only your body, but your will. You do not stop when others would." Elias nodded. "Yes, Your Highness. That is what makes us who we are. Humans are fragile compared to many here, but we do not give up easily. Even in great pain, even in fear, we push forward." The princess tapped her fingers against the arm of her chair. "In my empire, strength is measured by power and wisdom. But perhaps endurance is a strength of its own. Tell me, Captain, is this endurance only in survival, or does it appear in other parts of your life as well?" Elias allowed himself a small smile. "It is in everything. In how we build, in how we explore, in how we love, and in how we dream. It is what carries us to the stars, even when others believed it impossible." For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then the princess gave a soft laugh, light but genuine. "You speak as if endurance is the heart of your people." "It is," Elias replied simply. The princess's eyes glowed with thought. "Perhaps I was wrong to ask my first question in the way I did. I see now it was small compared to the truth. What matters is not how many times, but how long the human spirit refuses to fall. That is what surprises me most." Her words carried a tone of respect, and Elias felt relief. What had begun as an awkward subject had now become a bridge between species. The humans left the chamber that day knowing something important had changed. The princess no longer looked at them with mere curiosity. She looked at them with wonder, as if she had discovered a secret treasure hidden in plain sight. As Elias walked back through the shining halls of the station, he thought of how strange it was. One simple question, asked without care for protocol, had opened a door that no amount of diplomacy could have achieved. The princess wanted to know more, and he suspected her questions would not stop here. What he did not know was that beyond curiosity, a quiet respect was forming. The kind of respect that could change the future of humans in the galaxy forever. News traveled faster than light within the walls of the great station. What had begun as a single question from Princess Seralia now echoed in nearly every hall, dining room, and docking bay. Aliens of every kind repeated the story with their own twists. Some laughed, some admired, and some grew envious. The humans could feel the weight of so many eyes wherever they walked. For Captain Elias, this was both a blessing and a danger. He knew well that in the galaxy, reputation often mattered more than truth. If the other races thought humans were strange or amusing, they would never take them seriously. If they saw humans as resilient as he had tried to show, then perhaps a new path of respect would open. But the line between honor and humiliation was thin, and gossip had a way of twisting meaning. At the council meeting the next day, the large chamber was full to the brim. Representatives from dozens of worlds sat in a great circle, their robes and uniforms shining with color. The humans were given a seat near the center, a place that drew attention. Elias could hear whispers all around as they entered. A pair of scaled diplomats clicked their tongues in disbelief. A group of tall insectoids bent their antennae together, speaking in sharp whispers. Even the stone-skinned giants from the outer colonies turned their heavy heads to watch. When the council began, discussion turned to trade routes, defense agreements, and energy policies. Yet every few minutes Elias noticed glances in his direction. He remained calm, answering only when addressed, never once showing discomfort. Still, he knew what everyone was truly waiting for. They wanted to hear the humans speak again, to see whether they would confirm the stories or retreat in embarrassment. The chance came sooner than expected. A delegate from the Thren species, tall and thin with a voice like dripping water, raised his hand. "Captain Elias," he said, his words drawn out slowly. "Yesterday our princess asked you a question that has already spread through every corridor of this station. Many of us wonder, do you stand by your answer, or was it only clever speech to hide the truth?" The room grew still. All eyes turned to Elias. Even Princess Seralia leaned forward slightly, her expression calm but her interest clear. This was a test, Elias realized, perhaps even a trap. If he stumbled, humans would become a joke across the galaxy. If he stood firm, they might earn a respect that no treaty could buy. Elias rose from his seat, his face steady. "I stand by my words," he said clearly. His voice carried across the chamber, strong but not loud. "What I spoke was no trick of speech. It was the truth of my people. Humans are not the strongest or the oldest race among you, but we endure. That is our gift, and it is no small thing. Endurance is not a story we tell. It is the reason we stand here today, alive and among the stars." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some delegates nodded with respect. Others frowned, unwilling to believe. But the Thren delegate pressed further. "Endurance in words is easy. Endurance in action is harder. How can we trust that this is more than a boast?" Before Elias could reply, Princess Seralia rose from her seat. Her voice was clear, cutting through the murmurs like a bell. "Then let us test it." The chamber quieted again. All eyes turned to the princess. She stood tall, her gown shining with threads of silver light. "If humans claim endurance as their strength," she continued, "let us see it proven in a way that no one can deny. A trial not of battle but of stamina. A challenge of mind, body, and will. If they endure, then their words will be truth. If not, then perhaps they should be more careful with their claims." Her words were spoken without malice, yet they carried weight. This was no small suggestion. It was a direct challenge made before the entire council. Elias felt the pressure of 100 gazes upon him. His officers shifted uneasily, but he kept his posture straight. He knew the danger. If he refused, humans would be called cowards. If he accepted and failed, their pride would be shattered. But deep inside, Elias felt calm. This was the kind of test his people had faced since the dawn of time. He bowed slightly to the princess. "If endurance is the challenge, then humans will accept. We will face your trial with all that we are. A ripple of voices filled the chamber again. Some were surprised by his quick acceptance, others amused, and some deeply impressed. Princess Ceralia's eyes shone with a strange mix of curiosity and respect. "Very well," she said softly. "Then it shall be arranged." The meeting moved on, but the air had changed. No longer was the gossip only whispers of amusement. Now there was anticipation. Every delegate seemed eager to see what the humans could truly do. The test would not only decide their reputation, it could decide their place in the galaxy. As Elias left the chamber with his officers, one of them, a young lieutenant named Kara, whispered to him, "Captain, are you sure? We don't even know what the trial will be." Elias gave her a small smile. "That doesn't matter. Whatever it is, we'll face it. That's who we are." He walked down the shining corridor with steady steps. In his heart, he felt no fear, only resolve. He knew that endurance was not something that could be faked. It was written into every part of humanity. The princess might have begun with a simple, curious question, but now the entire galaxy would see the answer for themselves, and Elias was determined that they would not be disappointed. The preparations for the trial spread across the station like fire on dry grass. Every species wanted to see how the humans would perform. For some, it was a chance to laugh if they failed. For others, it was a chance to witness something new, something that might prove humanity's words true. The Grand Council approved the challenge, and Princess Ceralia herself oversaw the arrangements. The chosen arena was not a battlefield, but a vast simulation chamber designed to test many skills. The chamber could create shifting landscapes of heat, cold, storm, and gravity. It was often used for training elite soldiers from across the galaxy. Now, it would host a contest unlike any before. Captain Elias and his small team stood at the entrance, dressed in simple suits that protected them only from the worst conditions. Around them, aliens filled the viewing galleries, their voices rising in a low hum of anticipation. Some whispered that humans would last no more than a few hours. Others argued they might surprise everyone. Princess Ceralia appeared on a high platform, her presence commanding attention without effort. She raised her hand and the hall fell silent. "Today we test endurance," she said. "Not through combat or destruction, but through persistence. Each team must face the changing trials of the chamber. They may withdraw when they can no longer continue. The last team standing will prove their claim." Elias nodded firmly, feeling the weight of her words. He looked at his officers. Lieutenant Kara, strong-willed and sharp. Dr. Myers, the medic with calm eyes. And Sergeant Holt, a quiet but reliable veteran. Each of them carried the same determination. The trial began with heat. The chamber shifted into a desert, its floor covered in burning sand, the air shimmering like fire. Suns blazed overhead, artificial but fierce. Many alien teams struggled at once. Species from colder worlds fell to their knees, their bodies not built for such extremes. Some gave up quickly, escorted out by medics. The humans pressed forward, step by step. Sweat poured down their faces, their suits hot against their skin, but they did not stop. Elias remembered Earth's deserts, where tribes had once walked for days without rest. Compared to that, this was nothing new. When the desert finally faded, they stood tall, their breaths heavy but steady. Next came cold. The chamber transformed into frozen tundra, winds screaming like knives. Snow whipped across the floor and ice formed under every step. Here, species from icy planets had their turn to shine. Some moved easily, their bodies made for frost. Yet many others shivered, their energy drained by the biting air. The humans pulled their suits tight and pressed together, sharing warmth as they marched. Frost gathered on their faces, but they kept moving. Kara laughed through chattering teeth. "Reminds me of home in winter," she said. Holt grunted in agreement. They stumbled, fell, and rose again, never staying down. Hours passed. The chamber shifted again. Now gravity pressed down, heavy and merciless. Every step felt like carrying mountains. Many teams collapsed, unable to lift their limbs. Even strong alien warriors found themselves gasping, their bones aching under the crushing force. Elias fell to one knee, his muscles burning. But he forced himself up. He thought of the long marches of ancient soldiers, of explorers who carried supplies for weeks on broken ground. Humanity had always walked further than expected. They locked eyes, each human drawing strength from the other. Together they moved, slow but steady, while others dropped out one by one. The trial did not end there. After gravity came storms, lightning splitting the sky, winds tearing at clothes and skin. The humans leaned into the wind, holding each other steady. When hunger and thirst set in, they shared what little the chamber allowed. When exhaustion pulled at their bodies, they encouraged one another with words, small but powerful. Aliens in the gallery watched in awe. Many had left already, unable to bear the sight of so much struggle. Those who remained saw something they had not expected. The humans did not win with speed, strength, or grace. They won with stubbornness, the refusal to fall when their bodies begged them to stop. By the time the last storm ended, only 2 teams remained. One was a group of insectoid warriors, their hard shells protecting them well. The other was Elias and his humans, standing bruised, tired, but still moving forward. The insectoids lasted another hour before collapsing at last, their wings broken by the endless strain. When the chamber faded back to its empty state, the humans remained upright. Shaking, bleeding from scrapes, their faces pale with exhaustion but upright. The hall erupted in noise. Some cheered, some shouted disbelief, and many simply stared in silence. Princess Seralia rose again, her violet eyes fixed on Elias and his team. "The trial is complete," she declared, "and the humans remain. What was spoken has now been proven. Their endurance is not mere words, it is truth." Her voice echoed across the chamber, leaving no room for doubt. Elias and his team bowed their heads, too tired for speeches, but their victory spoke for itself. As they left the chamber, whispers followed them, but the tone was different now. There was no laughter, no mockery. There was respect, growing like a flame in dry wood. Elias glanced back once at the gallery where the princess still watched. She met his eyes and gave a faint smile, one that carried more meaning than words. He realized then that the question she had asked on the first night had led to this moment, where humans had shown the galaxy not only who they were, but why they mattered, and this was only the beginning. The trial ended, but its echoes did not fade. Across the station, voices carried the same story. The humans had endured when others had fallen. What began as whispers of amusement had turned into words of respect. Even those who had doubted could no longer deny what they had seen with their own eyes. Captain Elias and his team spent a full day recovering. Their bodies ached from the heat, the cold, the storms, and the crushing weight, yet not one of them complained. In their hearts, they knew they had carried more than their own pride. They had carried the image of their entire species. The victory belonged not only to them, but to every human scattered across the stars. Princess Seralia requested to see Elias again, once he was well enough to walk. Her message was simple but polite. She wished for a private conversation, away from the noise of the council and the gossip of the station. Elias agreed, though he wondered what her true intent might be. The meeting took place in a quiet garden within the station, a place where real soil and plants had been brought from distant worlds. The air smelled fresh, a rare treasure inside metal walls. The princess stood among tall silver-leafed trees, her gown flowing softly around her. When she saw Elias, she gave him a graceful nod. "You came," she said, her voice calm. "I was not certain you would after the trial drained so much from you." Elias smiled faintly. "Humans recover quickly, Your Highness. We may bend, but we don't stay broken for long." Her lips curved in a small smile. "Yes, that much is clear." They walked together among the trees. For a while they said nothing, listening only to the sound of water trickling from a small fountain. Finally the princess spoke again. "When I asked my question during the banquet, I thought it was a small curiosity, but it has led to something far greater than I imagined. Your endurance has left me wondering many things." Elias glanced at her. "Such as?" She folded her hands before her. "Why is it that your people fight so hard to keep going? Even in the trial I saw your strength fade, yet you refuse to fall. Many races stop when the body demands rest, but you humans seem to carry a fire that burns beyond the body. Is it pride, fear, or something else?" Elias thought for a long moment before answering. "It is not pride alone, and it is not fear, it is hope. Humans always believe tomorrow can be better, no matter how dark today may seem. That belief gives us the strength to keep walking, even when the road feels endless." The princess tilted her head, her violet eyes filled with thought. "Hope," she repeated softly. "My people see strength in wisdom, but we do not always look forward with such hunger. Perhaps that is why your kind rises so quickly among the stars, while others stay in their old ways." They reached the fountain and she paused there, looking at the water as it reflected the soft light of the garden. "You turned what could have been humiliation into honor," she said. "And you gave me something rare, honesty without fear. That is not common in my court." Elias met her gaze. "Sometimes honesty is the hardest endurance of all. But I believed you deserved it." For the first time, the princess's eyes softened in a way that surprised him. She was known for her sharp curiosity and her bold words, yet now she looked almost gentle. "Perhaps I do," she whispered. The moment passed quickly, but Elias felt the weight of it. This was no longer just about a question or a trial. A bond was forming, one built not on duty or politics, but on curiosity and respect. The princess was beginning to see humans not as subjects of study, but as equals with something valuable to share. As they walked back, Saralia asked about Earth. Elias spoke of green forests, endless oceans, and skies filled with storms and stars. He told her of music, of laughter, and of stories told by firelight. She listened closely, her eyes wide with wonder. For her, raised in the halls of power, such simple things sounded like treasures. "You make your world sound alive," she said softly. "Not only with life, but with spirit." "It is alive," Elias replied. "Even when we are far from it, we carry it with us." The princess gave a slow nod, as if she was beginning to understand something deeper. "Perhaps that is your true endurance. Not only to survive, but to carry your home and your spirit wherever you go." When they parted, the princess bowed her head slightly. "Thank you, Captain Elias. You have given me more than answers. You have given me questions I will carry for the rest of my life." Elias bowed in return. "And you, Your Highness, have given us the chance to be heard. For that, we are grateful." As he left the garden, Elias felt a quiet certainty settle within him. The bond between humans and the Aurelians had begun with an awkward question, but now it was becoming something stronger. Respect was taking root, and perhaps even friendship. He knew the days ahead would not be easy. Whispers still spread, and some species would never accept humans so quickly. But in the eyes of the princess, he had seen something that told him all was not in vain. It was the same thing that had carried humanity through deserts, storms, and endless nights. Hope. Days passed on the station, but the memory of the trial still lived in every corner. Humans were no longer seen as weak or laughable. They were spoken of with respect, sometimes even with awe. Yet peace on a station filled with so many species was always fragile. One evening, alarms echoed through the metal halls. Lights flashed red and a deep voice announced, "Warning! System breach detected. Power grid failing in sectors 3 and 4. Captain Elias was in the crew quarters when the alarm started. He rose at once, his instincts sharpened by years of service. "Team, on your feet," he called. His fellow crew members, still sore from the trial, jumped to attention without question. As they rushed into the corridors, Elias noticed the tension around them. Alien guards were hurrying to their posts. Engineers shouted across comms, and nervous citizens gathered in groups, unsure what was happening. This was no simple glitch. Something dangerous was unfolding. The humans reached the command hub where Princess Saralia stood with her council. Her calm expression was strained now, her fingers clutching a data pad. When she saw Elias, her eyes flickered with relief. "Captain," she said quickly, "our systems have been attacked. Something or someone has forced their way into the station's power core. If we cannot contain it, life support will fail in less than 2 hours." "Sabotage?" Elias asked. Saralia nodded. "We believe so. My guards are searching, but the intruder is skilled. They move like a shadow through the systems." Elias exchanged a look with his team. He had seen sabotage before, but never on a station this vast. He stepped forward. "Tell us what you need, Your Highness. We'll help." The princess hesitated for only a moment, then gave a sharp nod. "Very well. The intruder is likely near the central conduits, but be warned, our security drones cannot track them. Whoever it is knows how to hide." Without delay, Elias led his team through the twisting halls toward the conduits. The air felt heavy with tension, the lights flickering as power drained away. Every step echoed with urgency. When they reached the conduit chamber, the humans spread out carefully. The room was wide, filled with towering pipes that pulsed with energy. Shadows stretched between the machinery, and somewhere in the darkness, movement stirred. "Stay sharp," Elias whispered. A sudden hiss filled the air, followed by a spark of energy. From the shadows stepped a figure cloaked in dark armor, its face hidden by a mask. In its hands was a device glowing with unstable light, clearly meant to tear through the station's systems. The intruder moved fast, striking at the humans with surprising strength. Elias dodged, his team countered, and a fierce struggle began between metal pipes and flickering lights. It was not only a fight of strength but of endurance as the intruder fought with relentless precision. "Who are you?" Elias demanded between blows. The masked figure gave no answer, only pressed harder. Sparks flew as weapons clashed, the energy of the device threatening to overload. The humans, though outmatched in speed, fought with unity, covering each other, never allowing the intruder to strike freely. Finally, one of Elias's team managed to grab the device, wrenching it from the saboteur's hands. The intruder let out a sharp sound, half fury, half alarm, and then released a smoke charge. In an instant, the chamber filled with thick haze. By the time it cleared, the figure was gone. Breathing hard, Elias looked at the device now locked in his teammate's grip. Its glow was unstable, the energy within it trembling like a storm ready to break. "We need to get this to the princess," Elias said. They hurried back to the command hub where Seralia awaited. When Elias laid the device before her, her expression hardened. "This is no simple saboteur's tool," she said. "It is technology forbidden in most systems. Whoever sent this intruder wanted not only to harm the station, but to destroy it completely." The council erupted in alarm, but Seralia raised her hand for silence. Then she turned to Elias. "You and your people risked your lives to stop this. Without you, we might already be lost." Elias shook his head. "We only did what was needed. Survival is something humans understand very well." Seralia's gaze lingered on him, thoughtful and steady. "Yes," she said softly. "And once again, your endurance has carried us through." But even as the council tried to calm the citizens, Elias knew this was far from over. Someone powerful had planned the sabotage, someone who feared the growing respect between humans and the princess's people. Later, in the quiet of the garden, Elias stood alone, replaying the fight in his mind. The intruder had moved with precision as if they had trained for this exact mission. That kind of skill did not belong to a common criminal. It belonged to someone backed by an organization, or worse, an empire. Princess Seralia joined him, her expression calm but her eyes alert. "You are troubled," she said. Elias nodded. "Whoever sent that intruder won't stop. They wanted us to fail. They wanted fear to grow, and they'll try again." The princess was silent for a moment, then said firmly, "Then we will face them together. My people will not bow to shadows, and your people will not break. Perhaps that is our strength." Elias looked at her and felt a new bond forming, stronger than before. Not only respect now, but trust born from danger. The path ahead was uncertain, yet in that moment, he knew they would endure, because that was what humans did best. The station slowly returned to calm after the sabotage attempt, but the shadow of danger still lingered in every corridor. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair the damaged systems, while security patrols doubled their watch. Yet beneath the surface, unease spread like a quiet storm. Who had sent the intruder and why? Captain Elias knew these questions could not be ignored. He and his team spent their days studying the stolen device, examining every wire and code. Though human technology was different, their curiosity and determination pushed them forward. What they discovered unsettled them all. "This device carries a signature," one of the officers said, pointing to a string of alien symbols etched into the circuits. "It belongs to the Veil Dominion." Elias frowned. The name was unfamiliar, but Princess Seralia reacted the moment she heard it. Her face grew tight, her hands clasping behind her back. "The Veil Dominion," she said, her voice low, "are not strangers to us. They are a secretive power, one that seeks to control by fear. If they attacked here, it means they see us as a threat." The council argued, some urging silence, others demanding war. But Seralia raised her voice above them. "No, we will not act in fear. We will act in truth. Let us show them that their shadows cannot break us." Elias respected her courage, but he also knew the risk was greater than many realized. If the Dominion wanted to silence the princess or destroy her alliance with humanity, they would not stop at one failed attempt. Later that night, Elias found himself once again in the garden where glowing flowers lit the paths. Princess Seralia joined him, her presence calm yet heavy with thought. For a while neither spoke. The silence carried the weight of unspoken fears. Finally the princess said, "Do you see now, Captain, why my first question was so foolish?" I asked only of numbers, of limits. But endurance, this is the true answer. My people would have panicked under such an attack, but you stood, you fought, and you endured. Elias looked at her, his voice steady. Endurance is not always easy, Princess, but it is what has kept us alive, even when the odds were against us, and it will keep us alive again. Her gaze softened, and for the first time she allowed herself a small smile. Perhaps the galaxy needs such spirit. Perhaps that is why fate has brought us together. The next day, a grand assembly was called. Delegates from across the station gathered in the great hall, their faces tense with worry. Rumors of the Dominion's involvement had already spread, and fear hung in the air like a storm cloud. When Princess Seralia stepped forward, silence fell. Her voice rang clear, strong enough to cut through the fear. Friends of the galaxy, she said, we have faced a shadow that wished to divide us. But we are still here. We are still alive. And we will not bow. She turned, motioning to Elias and his team. These humans, new to our stars, have shown us something greater than fear. They have shown us what it means to endure. When others would have fallen, they stood. When others would have run, they fought. Their spirit is not bound by numbers or limits, but by a fire that refuses to die. The hall stirred with murmurs, then applause. Many who once doubted the humans now looked at them with respect, some even with admiration. Elias stood quietly, his hands behind his back, but inside he felt the weight of history pressing on his shoulders. He had not come to the stars to be a symbol, yet here he was, standing beside a princess who saw humanity not as fragile newcomers, but as allies worthy of trust. The council voted that day to form a new pact, one that joined the strength of the princess's empire with the endurance of humanity. It was not yet an alliance of armies, but it was the beginning of friendship, one strong enough to challenge the shadows of the Dominion. As the assembly ended, Seralia walked with Elias through the glowing corridors. Her words were soft but carried deep meaning. You have changed the way my people see yours, and you have changed the way I see the galaxy itself. Tell me, Captain, do all humans carry this fire? Elias smiled faintly. Not all, Princess, but enough. Enough to carry us forward, enough to carry those who stand with us. She nodded, her eyes bright with thought. Then perhaps that is the answer I was seeking all along. Not how many times, but how far. Not what limits you, but how far you refuse to stop. Together they stepped into the light of the station's vast window, where the stars stretched endlessly beyond. The shadows of the Dominion still waited, distant but dangerous. Yet in that moment Elias felt no fear, for beside him stood allies who believed, and behind him stood humanity, enduring, unyielding, unstoppable. And so the story that began with a curious question now ended with something greater, a bond between worlds, forged not in numbers, but in spirit.